YouTube, man. I hate to start this video on like a sad note, you know what I'm saying? But I had I just gotta share this. It really like, I heard this and it really kind of like stuck with me, y'all. So I was like, I need to share this, and because us as Christians, we gotta do a better job. And but that's another. Anyway, this is totally unrelated. But I saw a statistic, right? The statistic said that out of all of the people who convert to the Nation of Islam, right, 77% of them are Christians. And the other like 19%, I believe it was like, what is it, 13%, 20, whatever 100 minus 77 is, 23% are like of another, or like are of another religion, or like no religion at all. But 77% of people who convert to Muslim are Christians. That's crazy. And then I saw another statistic. It said that 40 million, I think it's like 40 million people convert to like Christianity annually. I believe it was like annually, or maybe like, so I want to say it was annual, but anyway, the stat was that 40% over some set of time, it was that 40 million people convert to Christianity, but on that same token, 106 million convert from it. We have to do a better job. Like, the church, we gotta do better. Christians, we gotta do better. We gotta spread the faith. We gotta seek God and save the lost. We have to save the lost. We have to save the lost, because we are, it's by like statistically proven, it's saying that like we are dropping in numbers, and by the year 2050, Christianity will be below, it's projected to be below 50%. That is totally unrelated to what I'm talking about in my video today, but I just had to let that know, because that was kind of disheartening when I saw that, and it kind of like made me a little upset. But you know, the end times are coming, and it is, you know, as it's, you know, as a in Revelations it talks about, you know, how people are gonna kind of stray away. So yeah, I guess that, but I guess that, you know, kind of has to happen. It's only gonna kind of keep snowballing, snowballing till Jesus comes. But it was a little disheartening, but that does not mean we stop sharing the faith. We want to share the faith, we want to share the faith, we want to share the faith, and that's what we're gonna do today. But man, but what's up, y'all? I'm more positive things, you know what I'm saying? I got more positive things to talk about, you know what I'm saying? And that's not a sad thing, you know, Jesus returning, and we're gonna keep spreading the faith. We're not gonna quit, we're gonna spread the faith. But I'm gonna take all the way back to the beginning of the faith in Genesis 50, right? I'm sure y'all familiar with the story of Joseph. I talked a little bit about it, but again, brief recap. I think I talked about in my last video the story of Joseph, but brief recap. His brother sold him, God gave him a dream when he was maybe in his teenage years, I believe. When he was a young man, God gave him a dream that his brothers will bow down to him and that he was gonna be a ruler someday. And his brothers hated him, and his father loved him so much, and his brothers were jealous of him and the fact that that he was their father's favorite child. So one day his brothers sold him into slavery. As a slave, he found favor with the king of the land, Pharaoh. Pharaoh liked him. Pharaoh made him second in command because he had like a God anointing inside of him. So he went from being sold into slavery to being second in command to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's wife, the queen, wanted Joseph really badly and wanted to sleep with Joseph. Joseph said no. So from that point, she said that, you know, he raped her and he tried to come on her. Pharaoh he was thrown in prison. And from prison, he was, you know, long story short, he was basically taken out of prison, put back into second in command of Pharaoh through the grace of God because of his anointing, his ability to interpret dreams. And story goes on. His brothers come back and he's second ruler, and his brothers are bowing down to him. And yeah, so that's where we're kind of are. He went through this long triumphant story, this long up and down journey, right? And he finally lived in the dream that he received when he was a young man versus now a grown man, that his brothers were gonna bow down to him. And his brothers were indeed bowing down to him, right? His brothers were indeed bowing down to him. It brings us to this point, right? So their father had finally passed, right? And the dream came true, and his father even got to witness him, and the brothers finally got to witness him in this powerful position. And but the father died, and it was a really sad moment. And the brothers were scared that now that the father was dead, like, hey, like, I think he's finally gonna get his revenge on us. Like, our dad's not here to help us no more, right? And they were really nervous, like, what their brother Joseph was gonna do to him. So they told Joseph, it was like, look, I'm begging you, like, I'll be your slave. But dad said before he died, like, to say, like, yo, will you please forgive us? Like, please don't do no harm on us. And Joseph heard that, and Joseph like cried. Joseph was like distraught, the fact that they even said that. And Joseph told him, he said, do not be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. And there's some part of the stories that I'm missing. I missed out, didn't tell for the sake of, time constraints, but that one part really stuck for me. He said, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? But it's really this verse right here. He said, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to the position so I could save the lives of many people. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. And that's so crazy to me, right? It's so crazy to me because, and I'm gonna let God speak through me here. It's so crazy that all that Joseph went through, right? All that Joseph went through, like, he was finally in a position, but that I don't know how many years it took, but it took a really long time, from the time he was a young man to a grown man, for the guy's dream to finally like happen. And he went through hell to get to where he was, right? And his own brothers sold him into slavery, right? And he told them, he's like, look, like, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for my good, right? So basically saying, right? So what you try to do, right? So what you try to do, you try to do was harm me, right? But God has a way of doing that for his good, right? Because God allowed you to harm me for his good, right? And I think that happens to a lot of us, right? A lot of times God allows things to happen in our lives, right? For his good. And we don't understand like what we're going through. We don't understand why we're going through the things that we're going through. We don't understand like why we go through hell to get to the place we are, right? Why does God even allow these things to take place to us? And then to the next point, it said, he brought me to the position so I could save the lives of many people, right? I know you heard that story. There's no testimony without tests, right? Like, in order to have a testimony, you have to endure things, right? Like, in order for me to have a testimony, like, I had to go through some things, right? I had to go through some adversities. For me to even be talking about this, for me to say about what I'm going through, I had to endure some things. That took some troublesome seasons. That took some stress. That took a lot of crying, a lot of breaking down. For me to finally make it through that and to tell a testimony, right? But in order to have a testimony, I had to go through a test. And a lot of times, my testimony, your testimony, is what will save many people, right? It will save somebody, right? I can't even think of the times where I got better from hearing someone else's testimony. Like, man, like, your testimony really helped me. Your testimony is what got me through a situation. Or when I was in a similar position as you were, right? Well, I heard your testimony and I got hope and I got faith that I'm gonna get through it based on your testimony. But in order for me to have got that, you had to go through that test for me to even go through that, right? And what Joseph did was, right, because Joseph's testimony, right, what Joseph's brothers did, right, what they meant for harm, God did for his good, right? Because when I'm going through something, I think of Joseph's testimony, right? I think of Joseph's testimony, and that gives me faith that my dreams will prevail, right? That anything that people might try to harm me is intended for my good, right? So Joseph's testimony helps me with my life. Hey, like that, a lot of times I'm going through something, I think the story of Joseph and I go to the word, right? But in order for Joseph had to go through some things in order for me to even receive that. And I wanted to tell you, right? Because Joseph's story saved the lives of many people in his word. Because this is preached thousands and thousands of years ago. That same story was preached thousands and thousands of years ago. And in the church, we always go to that, back to that story of Joseph, right? And that story did save the lives of many people, and I am one of them. And what I'm saying is, your testimony can also save the lives of many people, right? Ooh. Your testimony can also save the lives of many people. I had got stuff for a second. Because it's like, you don't, whatever God allowed to happen for you, like he's doing that for his good, right? And we're all called to, save the lost and to be a light to people. We're also to leave an impact on people. We're all called to, help our youth, the generation behind us, or help a friend, right? And sometimes it's like your life and your testimony, the things is gonna, your testimony is the things that are, well, how can I say this? It's your testimony, right, that will inspire people, right? So when you're going through something, right, when you're in that, when God is allowing things to go on in your life, right, chaos and what feels like chaos and hell, like, look, it won't be like that forever, right? And just remember, like, you're going through this for someone else's sake, right? Because God is doing that for your good and save the lives of many people, right? And you're going through that not for someone else's sake, but the sake that, because your testimony is going to save other people around you, right? So you're gonna, because just how someone was a light for you, you're gonna be that light to somebody else. So when you're going through something, if you're going through something, just know someone's coming behind you who's gonna be in a similar situation to yourself, and you're gonna be the one that God uses to get to them, right? You're gonna be the one that God uses to get to them. So don't be discouraged about what you're going through and the things that's going on and how bad things are and how depressed you are, and how, and I understand, I feel for you because we've all been there, right? But even the things that I've been through, the tests that I've been through, I've been able to tell other people, and it's been able to help them, right? And if it's able to help them, it was worth it. It genuinely was worth what I might have had to go through, right? Because one, I'm no longer in that, so it's fine now. Like, yeah, it's over with, like, it's done. I'm no longer in that, and it also helps you, so you don't have to go through the same thing I had to go through. That makes sense? And there's things that people ahead of me had to go through for the sake that I didn't have to go through, based on what they went through, and that gave me hope, right? And I learned from their lessons. So if you're in that same situation, if you're kind of going through something, don't lose hope, right? Because one, God not gonna leave you there, but two, I just want you to know that you're gonna be the hope to somebody else someday, because somebody behind you is gonna be in a dark place, and your story, your testimony, all the things that you've been through will be the light to them. Man, I love y'all. I'm signing out.